Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the intense power struggle at the very heart of Pakistan, a nation that right now feels like it's balanced on a knife's edge. So, how did we get here? How does a country's top general become such a controversial, polarizing figure? We're going to explore that by looking at the turmoil on the ground, the key figures locked in this conflict, and what it all means for the rest of the world. Okay. Let's get into it. First, to really get this, we have to set the scene. According to our sources, Pakistan is going through a period of really intense political and social friction. And the picture our sources paint is, well, it's pretty grim. We're talking about an economy in freefall, with soaring inflation causing real pain. But it's more than that. It's the crackdowns on protests, the reports of people just disappearing. You've got political party workers getting arrested simply for chanting slogans. And get this, sources mention police filing official reports for protests that haven't even happened yet. Talk about a pressure cooker environment. And this quote from one commentator, Waqar Malik, it really just hits you. He says, "The people's morale has been crushed. Our nation's head has bowed in shame that we surrendered to a single threat from Donald Lu." You can feel the raw frustration there, right? This widespread feeling that the country's sovereignty was compromised, that it buckled under foreign pressure, and that it just broke the national spirit. At the center of this whole storm is one man, General Asim Munir, the Chief of Army Staff. So let's take a closer look at how our sources portray him. And wow, the language used by critics is incredibly strong. This same commentator calls the current military leadership the most traitorous generals in Pakistan's history, and says he would have jumped from a 100-story building out of shame. I mean, that's not just criticism, that's painting a picture of absolute ultimate betrayal. But here's where it gets really fascinating. This is the central paradox. While one side is vilifying him, the political party he allegedly helped bring to power is now putting his picture on their banners. One source points out the incredible irony. Party workers who were once taught to chant, "Respect the vote," are now putting the general's face on posters, sometimes even larger than their own leaders. What does that tell you? So who is this guy, really? Well, it depends entirely on who you ask. Our sources paint these wildly contradictory portraits. On one hand, he's described as a pious hafiz. That's someone who has memorized the entire Quran, and he's the son of an imam. But on the other, he's described as having a vindictive temper, especially when it comes to Imran Khan, and he gets compared to other regional strongmen. He's seen as a pragmatist delivering what the West wants, but others see him as a dictator running the country under an undeclared awesome law, where his word is fine. Now, in direct opposition to the establishment, you have a resistance movement. And it's a movement that's largely being driven from outside Pakistan, all centered around the imprisoned former Prime Minister Imran Khan. And his supporters overseas have launched this massive, coordinated campaign of protests. We're talking huge demonstrations. Sources tell us about record-breaking crowds showing up in London, passionate protests erupting all across Europe, from Italy to Spain, and all the way to major cities in the US. This isn't just a few people with signs. This shows some serious global organization and motivation. And this campaign isn't just happening on the streets. Nope. Supporters recently funded a full-page ad in the New York Times to mark 2 years of Khan's imprisonment. As you can imagine, that did not go over well with the Pakistani government. Sources say they were furious, sparking this whole debate about funding. Meanwhile, supporters are just like, "Hey, it's our money, we'll spend it how we want." Back in Pakistan, sources describe a whole new protest playbook. It's almost like a guerrilla strategy, designed to maximize disruption while minimizing arrests. The advice is super specific. Use small, mobile groups for these flash protests, wear masks to beat facial recognition, and, this is key, put your phone on flight mode or in a special Faraday bag to avoid being tracked by what they call an authoritarian regime. But here's the twist. While he's facing all this resistance at home, General Munir is getting a very different reception on the international stage. Sources suggest he's being positioned as the West's new pragmatic partner, the guy they can do business with. And a perfect example of this is the influential British magazine, The Economist. They recently published what some sources are calling a debut profile of General Munir.
You can think of it as his formal introduction to a wider Western audience. An audience that, let's be honest, probably didn't know who he was until now.
The analysis suggests a very pragmatic alignment. According to the article, Munir is providing cooperation on things like counterterrorism and critical minerals. And in return, he's getting renewed American support, which reportedly includes weapons sales and even a 2-hour lunch with Donald Trump. That's a pretty significant gesture.
The profile also paints a picture of a leader who is more of a risk taker than the guy before him, but it also draws this parallel to other regional strongmen, noting that, according to sources in the article, he can be vindictive, especially when the name Imran Khan comes up. One commentator draws this really sharp contrast. When India recently faced U.S. pressure over its ties with Russia, it firmly rejected the demands backed by its military. This gets contrasted with Pakistan's situation, where an absolutely not from Prime Minister Imran Khan was allegedly followed by a regime change operation. It's framed as this moment of national defiance versus national capitulation. So, all of this brings us to the final, crucial question. What does this intense power struggle actually mean for the future of democracy in Pakistan? You know, sometimes the biggest changes are symbolic, and several sources are expressing alarm that on official banners for national celebrations, the images of the nation's founders, Jinnah and Iqbal, are being replaced. And in their place, the faces of the current political and military leadership. That's a symbolic shift that many find deeply troubling. And perhaps nothing highlights the stakes more clearly than this. An editorial in Pakistan's respected Dawn newspaper, cited by one source, describes a judiciary that appears to be surrendering. It uses the term lawfare for what it calls an unprecedented weaponization of the legal system against political opponents. When a country's top newspaper says that, you know the situation is serious. And so we end here. The sources present a nation at a crossroads, defined by this battle between a powerful general, gaining acceptance abroad, an imprisoned but popular leader, commanding a global resistance, and a whole population caught in the middle. The answer to this question is going to shape Pakistan for decades to come.